Does being sexually attracted to someone under the age of 18 automatically make you a pedophile? It's a question that many might answer with a simple yes. But the reality is far more complex. In most countries, you are legally considered a child until 18 years old. But does that legal definition align with the medical definition of pedophilia? Are you labeled a pedophile if you think someone under 18 is sexually attractive? In this video, we are going to unpack these questions by exploring what it really means to be a pedophile. We'll cover where the term comes from, how it's defined by medical professionals, and why it's often misunderstood. This is a psychiatric disorder rooted in the very specific criteria, and it's important to understand the distinction between legal definitions and medical diagnosis. So, who are the people diagnosed with pedophilia? And why is it part of a broader set of sexual disorders? And most importantly, can you be one of them for simply finding someone under 18 attractive? Stick around as we delve into the history, the science, and the facts behind this controversial term. Term pedophilia wasn't always used in the medical field. In fact, its earliest appearance were in non-medical domains. It wasn't until 1896 that Richard von Krafft-Ebing introduced the term pedophilia erotica in his influential work Psychopathia Sexualis. This book focused on understanding sexual behaviors that were considered deviant for the time, and Krafft-Ebing identified pedophilia as a condition involving sexual attraction to children. The term gained further traction in mid-20th century, especially in 1950s, when it started appearing more frequently in medical literature. It was around this time that media outlets also began to popularize it, often sensationalizing the disorder, which contributed to public misconception about what it really meant. The word itself comes from the Greek terms paidos, meaning child, and philia, meaning love or affection. However, the term's clinical usage is quite specific. Pedophilia refers to a persistent sexual attraction to prepubescent children, typically those aged 13 or younger. This definition is important to note, as it sets pedophilia apart from the other forms of age-related sexual preferences. Today, pedophilia is recognized as a psychiatric disorder, included in both DSM-5 and ICD-11, which are the primary manuals used for diagnosing mental health conditions. Now that we've covered the historical background, let's dive into how pedophilia is defined in modern psychiatric practice. Pedophilia is classified as a psychiatric disorder in both the DSM-5 and ICD-11. But what does this classification really mean? In DSM-5, pedophilia is categorized under paraphilic disorders, which includes conditions involving abnormal sexual desires. To be diagnosed with pedophilic disorder, a person must meet specific criteria. These criteria include recurrent, intense sexual fantasies, urges, or behaviors involving prepubescent children, typically under the age of 13. Importantly, these attractions must last for at least 6 months and cause significant distress or impairment in social, occupational, or other areas of functioning. It's also essential to note that not every person who experiences pedophilic attractions acts on them. The DSM-5 makes a clear distinction between having pedophilic feelings and engaging in illegal activities. This is a critical point as many people wrongly equate pedophilia with child abuse, when in reality, the two are not always connected. The ICD-11, a global diagnostic tool, has a similar approach. It defines pedophilia as a sustained sexual preference for prepubescent children and emphasizes that this attraction should be clearly distinguishable from other chronophilic conditions. Both manuals acknowledge that pedophilia is a complex disorder requiring careful diagnosis and management by professionals. Pedophilia is just one type of paraphilia. But what exactly is paraphilia? In psychiatry, paraphilia refers to unusual sexual interest or behaviors that deviate from what society typically considers normal. While many paraphilias are harmless, some, like pedophilia, can cause harm or lead to criminal behavior, which is why they are classified as disorders when they involve non-consenting individuals or cause significant distress. Now, to understand pedophilia in context, it's helpful to look at the concept of chronophilia. Chronophilia is a term used to describe sexual preferences based on the age of the partner, and it encompasses a range of attractions. Pedophilia specifically refers to an attraction to prepubescent children, typically under 13 years old, but there are other forms of chronophilia as well. For example, hebephilia describes an attraction to early pubescent adolescents, usually between the ages of 11 and 14, and ephebophilia refers to an attraction to late adolescents, typically between 15 and 19 years old. These distinctions are crucial because not every attraction to someone under the age of 18 qualifies as pedophilia. In fact, pedophilia is diagnosed only when the attraction to children who have not yet reached puberty. This spectrum helps to understand that while society often conflates all attraction to minors as pedophilia, in clinical terms, the difference lies in the age group being targeted. This framework is important in understanding the disorder without oversimplifying or mislabeling behaviors, which happens all too often in public discourse. One of the biggest misconceptions surrounding pedophilia is the confusion between legal and medical definitions of the term. Legally, many countries define anyone under the age of 18 as a child, which is why sexual relationships with minors are often labeled as pedophilia in public sphere. But the legal definition of a child doesn't always match the psychiatric definition of pedophilia. From a medical standpoint, pedophilia refers specifically to sexual attraction to prepubescent children, generally those under the age of 13. This is a critical distinction. Just because someone is below the legal age of consent does not necessarily mean that any attraction to them is classified as pedophilia. Interestingly, studies have shown that this attraction may be more common than often assumed. Research by John Breer found that about 21% of participants reported some level of attraction to small children, and another study by Colty or Siarha showed 23.1% of respondents indicated some degree of sexual interest in children. However, these feelings don't necessarily imply a clinical disorder like pedophilia, which involves a persistent, recurrent attraction to prepubescent children and must meet specific medical criteria. For example, an adult who is attracted to a 16 years old would not fall under the definition of pedophilia, as the 16 years old is likely post-pubescent. This confusion is often fueled by the media, where terms like pedophile are used loosely to describe anyone engaged in illegal sexual relationships with someone under 16 or 18 years old, but legally inappropriate relationships involving teenagers are typically covered under terms like statutory rape, where the issue is consent, not the clinical diagnosis of pedophilia. It's crucial to recognize that medical diagnoses, like pedophilia, involve a specific set of criteria, while the law uses broader terms to protect minors. Understanding these differences helps clarify the often murky conversation about sexual offenses and mental health. Here, it's essential to also consider the age of consent laws, which vary widely around the world and impact how these relationships are perceived legally. In many countries, the age of consent is set between 16 and 18, meaning that individuals above the legal age of consent can engage in relationships without them being legally classified as abusive. However, if the individual is below the age of consent in that jurisdiction, any sexual relationships with them is typically considered a crime, often referred to as statutory rape or sexual exploitation of minors. In many legal systems, criminal acts involving sexual abuse of minors are addressed under terms such as child sexual abuse, sexual exploitation of minors, indecent assault, or statutory rape, depending on jurisdiction. These legal terms focus on the violation of consent and the protection of minors, rather than on psychiatric diagnosis. For instance, statutory rape refers to sexual activity with a minor who is below the age of consent, even if they are physically mature. These acts are serious crimes, but don't necessarily involve a clinical diagnosis of pedophilia. This confusion is often fueled by the media, where terms like pedophile are used loosely to describe anyone engaged in illegal sexual relationships with someone under 18. But legally inappropriate relationships involving teenagers are typically covered under these broader legal definitions, where the issue is consent, not the clinical diagnosis of pedophilia. So, to sum it all up, pedophilia is a specific psychiatric disorder defined by a sexual attraction to prepubescent children. It's not simply about being attracted to someone under the age of 18, as legal definition often suggests. The term has a deep historical background, from its introduction by Richard von Krafft-Ebing to its inclusion in today's DSM-5 and ICD-11. It's a part of a broader category of disorders known as paraphilias, and it's often misunderstood and confused with other age-related attractions like hebephilia or ethebophilia. We've also clarified the distinction between medical and legal definitions, while the media and public often conflate the terms. It's crucial to understand that pedophilia as a diagnosis involves specific criteria, whereas legal terms like child sexual abuse and statutory rape are designed to protect minors from exploitation, regardless of offender's psychiatric state. And you need to remember, not all child abusers are pedophiles, and not all pedophiles are child abusers. They can be and are part of our society until they don't act on it. Understanding this difference helps foster a more informed and respectful dialogue around these sensitive issues. If you found this video helpful, make sure to give it a like and share it with others who might be interested in learning more about psychiatric disorders and mental health. Don't forget to subscribe for more educational content on psychology and mental health. Thanks for watching.